has been a result of thoughts that have come to me while I was looking for designs and posting them on Design Quest. A little bit about my background. I'm a postgraduate design student from NID, doing graphic design, and I also have a background in sociology and economics. And another thing to add here would be, I'm currently doing my diploma project with the outreach programs at NID, and it's related to, to showcasing their work, the work that outreach does to their clients. And since outreach deals a lot with craft, it's something which has suddenly, become something that has started to intrigue me, and yet I'm also very confused about, craft. And all these things have sort of culminated into this presentation. So I have participated in this competition because I think that Design Quest has huge potential as a platform to share work, as well as discuss issues related to design. I have thoroughly enjoyed the previous stages of posting and commenting, and through this, I think, to an extent, I can actually feel the energy of young Indian designers and the student community. Okay. I came to NID with a background of sociology and economics and a strong desire to study communication design. And my work has included publication designs, logos, design for museum spaces, and also perhaps for me, the most relevant example is a research paper which I had written as a project on understanding the possibility of a universal visual language. Quite simply put, it's about understanding whether things like pictograms would work in a context other than that they're designed for, as well as other visual imagery. And I wrote this, this was in the third semester, which is about a while ago now, 2 years ago, I think. And I recently found myself coming back to it every time when I was posting on Design Quest. As well as another incident is, there was this conference at NID, which was on the importance of history of design, and the main focus was how does it impact, or how does it help designers and students, and how does it intrigue them. This was in collaboration with the V&A, Victoria and Albert, and the Royal College of Art in London. Okay, and it was here when I first started to question exactly how our world is so super soaked in Western thinking, and how exactly and how much does this affect our way of looking at history and further our sense of design. This is more or less an internal dialogue which I'm having with myself, which leads me to wonder, what is Indian design, and what is it meant to be to the designer? As students, we have had decent understanding of design from around the world, and also through posts which we have looked on blogs and stuff when we needed to post for Design Quest. Scandinavian design, this chair by Hans Wegner, the Valet chair, the Gioponti Superlegra, and the Barcelona chair. Okay. While all of the above have some distinct qualities, historically, is it always enough to identify the objects of today from a room full of objects? Are they always that distinct? Or do they follow principles that are universal in nature? Similarly, maybe we should explore an idea of having a contemporary Indian design identity. Einstein was quoted to have said that if I had 1 hour to save the world, I would spend 15 minutes defining the problem and only 5 minutes finding the solution. Why do we need an Indian design identity? Could it be to set ourselves apart from the rest of the world? Or is it to retain an identity for ourselves? Or is it to preserve and interpret our traditions and culture through design, which is the living traditions of Indians and culture through our design? And also try to figure out what could the influences for this design identity be. Is it the global economy that is driving us to think in certain ways? Is it the advances in science and technology that influence us? Or is it just individual or personal aspirations? You've got to ask yourself, as consumers of design, do we consider ourselves Indian or global citizens? So what is the role of an Indian designer in the Indian context? Assuming he and she has a responsibility to create Indian design, could Indian design be defined through jugaad? Jugaad, I feel, is an important indicator of the needs versus means of relationship of the Indian people. But I believe it would be deficient to explain or sum up what Indian design or our traditions are, for that matter. Our tradition of ornamental aesthetics, like cliches, a Google search will pop up these kind of, if you type Indian design as a keyword, you get these sort of things which are very cliched. Mainly tribal patterns, rangoli motifs. How about craft? Some people believe that craft could be a direction to propel Indian design in the global context. But could this be a solution by itself? Let us look at an example, and this is one on a lost wax casting. The one on the left is an Indian version of dokra, and there's similar craft on the right. But it's a mask. It's pretty much African. You can tell by the features. And the process is similar, in this case, the lost wax casting, but is it, however, symbolic? And the identity tells us of this. Does the identity tell these objects apart? Or, how about in this case? Can we tell whether it's Indian or African? This object is a design from Doshi Levine, a terracotta water vessel with diatomite filters. Basically, it's a madka where they've infused Indian design and technology to take it forward and make it more contemporary, I guess. When you consider this, Doshi is an Indian. There's Nika Doshi, and Jonathan Levine is he's from France, right? And both of these are based in London. So, can you consider this as Indian design? Just the fact that one of them is Indian, and are they using Indian craft to create something called Indian design? Can anyone think of something that can be called contemporary Indian design, almost calling for symbols of contemporary Indian design? What would they be? Would it depend on the birth or descent of the designer or the artisan, or the origin of materials, the manufacturer, the retailer? Does this validate what we call Indian design? Another example I'd like to cite is this group in Italy called whomade.it, who made it. It's pretty catchy. And one person, Eduardo Perry from Who Made It, these are a couple of his designs. It's essentially using the dokra or metal casting technique again. He's infused that with something which looks a lot more contemporary than what we would maybe perceive as, Indian design or something that we're more used to seeing. And this is another piece of his work. This one's a torn up or inked. These are centerpieces in wrought iron, hammered and forged by hands. And this is some terracotta work, lampshades and bases in natural glazed terracotta. And this is, again, the lost wax technique. It's called ivory, and it's the brass casting which is done in Bastar in Chhattisgarh. A similar, it is from Bastar, designed and created there. So how can we define a range of objects like this? Is it true that an Italian designer has created a product like this, is one out of local craft, one which is out of local skills and processes? I can clearly see that the range comes from an Indian designer as well. See such a range coming from an Indian designer as well, and will this be considered as Indian design? Another example here is, or you could compare this to a Kunbi woman wearing the fabric that she's draped on. It's called the kapur, and it's no longer worn as a daily form of dress up. But when you have designers like Wendell Rodrigues using inspiration for this as an inspiration for his collection, a revival of craft making hand-woven fabric. This is the collection that was designed. There's no direct connection, but it is inspired by the kapur. Is it because the context has shifted to a contemporary one? Or is India is a diverse country with diverse cultures, skills, and customs? It's no surprise that many Indian products are specific only for a small geographic region, and local artisans would make them for consumption within that area. Their identities are based on these. So this is an example of a woven basket which is used to catch fish, and this is in Tamil Nadu. And though there recently has been more acceptance and appreciation of it among communities other than their traditional target customer, broadly, could traditional Indian design objects, Indian objects be termed as functional? The aesthetic factors of ornamentation usually serve the purpose of communicating the identity of the object and the individual who owned it. How different are they from contemporary objects we buy to decorate our home and person in order to identify ourselves as the best examples of lifestyle? But I would understand that these things could be considered as a thing craftspeople would look up to, and then you start from here and then it only gets better. But at this level, it would also be a designer who intervenes and to provide that design, to take the design somewhere. As one of my classroom projects, as I'd spoken about earlier, I had done a small inquiry into trying to understand if a universal visual language was possible or not. The conclusion to which was that most design is better understood and accepted in a context, rather than a scenario where everyone in the world would need to be brainwashed into believing that there was only one perfect way to represent thoughts and ideas. This thought has made me appreciate diversity in Indian culture, language, religion, etc. even more. It is true that the design has universal principles that can be applied to contexts like India. Therefore, sometimes the dominance of these could be very strong to blur out the boundaries of Indian design, or even for that matter, Italian design. But this does not mean that the object will be less relevant or not recognized within its context. And again I ask, do we really need to have something known as Indian design? Through this, I have come to the conclusion that maybe the context of the user, the artisan, and the material could be the starting point. Sure, different projects will have a customized approach, even at the systems level, but I believe that the context will play a defining role in the future to shape an Indian design. This should be something that the designer who's designing for the Indian context should have at the back of his mind, or should be focusing on, rather than stressing too much on what Indian design is about. And what I've concluded in this presentation are my thoughts and my personal journey as a designer. I think that this platform of Design Quest would be a perfect excuse to incite further discussions. To help me understand my position as a designer, I will hear and share opinions with others who had similar thoughts. After all, nothing as huge as this can be defined by a single individual, but it would have to be a consensus. I would like to visit Milan, as Italy is historic for its design. They have very successfully coined the term Italian design. One thing that they have in common with India, I feel, is a strong tradition in craft, which they have built upon to create their identity of superior manufacturing capabilities with high standards of quality. However, I'm curious about the life of the traditional craft in Milan, and to see if they have sustained the relevance through the transition to industrialization. Beyond this, Milan will showcase designers from all over the world, and it will be everyone, I'm sure they dream to be there and experience the new and the famed designers. And I would be privileged to have an opportunity if I was selected. Yeah, thank you. And you can contact me for questions.